Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, if you don't like it, you can leave. Do you want a refund or not? We are having dinner as a family. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. If you don't like it, you can leave. Disclaimer: this isn't my story, it belongs to a colleague who says I can put it on the internet for some internet points, and some of the details may be a little lost/exaggerated. Background: two businesses, both alike in trade. In fair UK industrial estates, where we lay our scene. From ancient deals break to new mutiny, where new owner's blood makes old civil hands unclean. The story comes from an employee of Company A who manufactured product A, and across the industrial estate there was Company B who produced product B. Now both businesses had started up independently about 20 years previously. Both companies could have reverse engineered each other's products fairly easily and had most of the major machinery to begin production. However, both of the owners had met early on and came to a gentleman's arrangement where they each agreed not to produce each other's products and would endorse each other's business if clients needed the other products. Both had had pretty decent success and there was a very friendly rivalry between the two companies, e.g. they each had amateur football teams, local pub quiz teams, etc., but a lot of cooperation too, e.g. borrowing staff to fix each other's machines. However, all good things must come to an end. The owner of Company A was retiring and selling up. From what I can gather, the owner was a pretty decent bloke and had tried to put a all staff guaranteed their jobs for 12 months clause into the sale of the business. He'd had a few offers, including the owner of Company B, again, another decent bloke. I think he'd offered 80% of the asking price. However, on the last day for offers, a southern company offers him 125% of the asking price, though with the 12-month clause removed. Understandably, the owner took this offer because, well, who wouldn't? He did promise that he would give each employee a glowing reference if they ever needed it. These new owners came in with a swath of new policies, targets, the whole shebang. At first, they targeted the sales team with impossible to reach quotas, excessive management, over-the-top timekeeping. You get the picture, it was miserable for them. Understandably, most of the team, except two, had quit and been replaced by the time they refocused on the production team. First they came with demands for faster production, then pushed hard against downtime, started buying in shoddier materials which increased wastage as they broke more often. At the same time they shouted about wanting lower damage rates. They also wanted them to reverse engineer product B, which was done but deliberately at a snail's pace. Now on to the action. Let's introduce Tom. Tom was the manager of the entire production team of 14 staff. He'd been the first employee ever hired by the company and knew everything about everything in the business, and was exceptionally good at his job. About 9 months since the takeover, the entire production team was dragged into a morning meeting with these new owners who proceeded to berate the entire team for being lazy, expensive, and useless blah blah blah. Eventually, Tom had had enough of it. He told them in no uncertain terms that the reasons for damages going up was because of their worse materials, that pushing the staff without the downtime breaks was causing more staff fatigue, increasing illness and damaged goods, etc. He calmly rebuffed each and every criticism leveled at his team. This wound up the new owners who got increasingly frustrated with him. Eventually, the lead new owner shouted at him, "If you don't like it, you can always leave." So Tom left the room without another word. Everyone from the staff to the owners was completely shocked. Staff couldn't believe he'd abandoned them, owners, that anyone would be stupid enough to walk out. The meeting was finished about 10 minutes later. The staff returned to the production unit. Tom isn't there. His car is gone. He won't answer his phone. The next day, nothing. Vanished. Late in the afternoon the day after, the production assistant manager gets a text from Tom. It's brief: all staff, pub 5:30. Intriguing. At 5:30, they all duly file into the pub, filled with mystery and excitement. Sitting in one of the large booths is Tom and a friend, the owner of Company B, quickly seated and brought drinks. It turns out when the owners told Tom to leave, he did. But he wasn't just prepared to just leave it at that. No siree. Since the meeting, Tom had explained the entire situation to owner B, including they were trying to make his product assumedly to compete and push him out of business. Owner B was not impressed. He had extended an olive branch of peace to the new owners at the start, but they refused to even speak to him. So, both with axes to grind, they'd come to an arrangement. Owner B would hire all of production team on terms relatively similar to what they already had, if they'd come and make product A for him. Said to go away and think about it, which they did until the end of the week. All agreed they'd prefer to work for owner B, and even convinced him to extend the offer to the two surviving members of the sales team since they knew the client base and the sales pattern. Monday morning. 9 a.m. 17 letters of resignation, 14 staff plus Tom plus 2 sales, are hand-delivered to the new owners in their ivory tower office. Under the terms of the contract, any production staff who resigned were immediately to be removed from the premises, assumedly to stop any sabotage, though the 2 sales had to continue with their notice period. Panicking, the owners plead with the team not to leave, to serve some notice period, train some new staff. Anything. Tom, in true cinematic style, stops. He turns part way round. I believe your last words to me were, if I didn't like it, I could always leave. And he walks out the door. Aftermath. Company A simply couldn't find anyone who could produce the products without any training, and since they had no idea on training anyone themselves, production came to a crashing and permanent halt. All of the orders became unfulfillable, so they had no choice but to cancel, and where needed refund, any orders placed. Their entire revenue stream just dried up. With no choice left, they had to shutter the business down. They did have to sell off the machinery, a fair portion of which made a short journey across to Company B, at knockdown prices. We did try to do some rough maths. Our best estimate is the new owners lost 60-70% of the money they'd invested in the business. The sales survivors managed to secure a vast majority of the previous business from Company A, including several of the cancelled orders. With that secured, it meant most of the revenue started to flow into Company B, ensuring that the entire staff could continue to work there. Whilst the original owner of A was sad to hear his business had to shut down so soon, he was delighted that many of his staff had secure work with his old business rival/friend. He did visit occasionally and always warmly received. Moral of the story: don't tell anyone to leave unless you can survive without them. Do you want a refund or not? So a couple of years ago, I bought a Fitbit watch from a large online marketplace. I mostly wanted to buy it from this site because they offered free 2-day shipping. The day the watch is delivered, I get a photo to prove it was delivered. I see the picture of the package and it's in front of my front gate, which was painted bright green. Normally, packages are placed inside the gate. Why it was in front this time, I don't know. I was working from home but was actually working, so I didn't see the email telling me the watch was delivered. A couple hours had passed by the time I went out there to get the package. But it was gone. I called the store and told them that the package was stolen and if there was something they could do. The lady said to look around and ask my neighbors to see if they took it. If it didn't turn up, to call back and they would send a replacement. Okay, I asked around, but nobody has seen it. I was alone at the house, but I asked my family if they saw a package. No one saw anything. After 3 days, I call back and they offer to send me a replacement. Perfect. It comes to the house about a week after the other/first watch was delivered. My MIL comes by to have dinner that night. When her shows up, she hands me a package. It was the first watch. My MIL have driven by a week earlier, saw the package and grabbed so no one would steal it. But she forgot to tell anyone, so she actually stole from me. Well, shit. I can the store and tell the customer rep what happened. She said she would talk to a supervisor and call me back. She doesn't that night and I make a note to call back. A couple of days later I get an unexpected package from this store. It is a third watch with an apology and a letter saying that they refunded my card for the full price of the watch. So now I have 3 watches and my money back. I call them and ask to talk to a supervisor. I explained to them what happened and the supervisor said that they would call me back. I get an email a couple days later with an apology and confirmation that they refunded my card the full price of the watch. Again. I call again, talk to a supervisor again, and explain what happened again. He asked if I wanted the refund to my card or store credit. I told him, no, you didn't hear what I said. He says, do you want a refund or not? I hung up the phone. I didn't call back since I didn't want to bankrupt the store. We are having dinner as a family. This story takes place in the late 90s when I was a child. I am not from an English-speaking country, but my grandparents used to travel a lot back then. They brought us a digital camera from Japan some years before they were available at electronic shops, and they also bought me several video games that were just released in the US. One day they brought me a copy of Pokemon Blue, but I had a very hard time getting to understand the game since I couldn't read English so well. I had a friend who also was trying to make sense of the game, so we would call each other every few minutes whenever we discovered something new. Being during the 90s, I had to dial my friend's family landline, and I would have to ask to speak to my friend whenever their parents would pick up the phone instead of him. My parents were already tired of having the phone ring every few minutes, and then yell at me to pick up the phone since every time the phone ranged it was my friend. One night, we were having dinner when the phone rang again. My parents were visibly annoyed at the constant interruption of peace, and my mom told me in a very serious tone that I should go pick up the phone and tell my friend that I cannot speak right now since we were having dinner as a family and that I would call back later. Begrudgingly and feeling wronged, I stood up to go pick up the phone in the hallway. Turns out that the one that was calling was not my friend, but my grandma that was traveling in a distant continent during bad hours so that she could speak to my mom. That's when I saw my chance for malicious compliance and took it. I loudly said so that my mom would hear me in the dining room, "Hi grandma. Yes, my mom is here, but she can't pick up the phone right now since we are having dinner as a family." I went back to dinner table to see my mom red in anger, while my dad was trying really hard not to laugh. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.